Welcome back to Breaking Bad Habits, episode 133. That is our official Eclectic Collection podcast uh, topic today. And you might say, bad habits, everybody's got them. That's true, but this is when a bad habit isn't your bad habit, it's somebody else's bad habit, and they do it to you, and you want to get rid of them. I heard this story once, and I thought it was brilliant, because sometimes you don't lean into the skid, and you have to, and you don't want to, but you find yourself doing desperate things because desperate times call for desperate measures. So allegedly, there's a story of a bunch of teenage boys that are up to no good. They used to pass this little old man's house, and they would throw rocks at it just because they were jerks. And for the most part, it was happened a lot, like several times a week. And the little old man would get upset, and he would go outside, and he would yell at them and say, "Stop throwing rocks at my house." So of course, then they would throw rocks at him, and it was worse. And he would run behind his house and get back in it, and they would just throw rocks as long as they felt like it, and then they would leave. Again, jerky people, and they're not right, but they would do it. This went on for months and months and months in varying seasons when they felt like it. Sometimes they were worse. Sometimes they would yell and curse. Sometimes they would, break things. Sometimes they would stay for a little bit or a long time, but they did it very consistently on their way home from school, and the little old man would get upset every day. So, of course, he's living in a state of disarray and doesn't know what to do. And, he calls the police, but the police are never there when it happens. And, it's not really something that's very nice. So it just gets uglier and uglier. And he doesn't know who the kids are. So it's hard to prove, and he can't see well. And, back and forth red tape craziness. So had he been younger, he would have gone out and probably confronted them sooner and quicker, and it would have been a lot more finished quickly, but that wasn't the situation. So this goes on and on. So finally, he devises a plan that he's going to help himself. So he goes out the next time he sees them, and they're throwing rocks. And he's like, "You can't even throw rocks correctly. You people have terrible aim. You don't know what you're doing." He starts insulting them, and he brings out his wallet. And he's like, "If you can hit this, this, and this," and he gives them targets, "I'll give you each $1. And they're like, "What? You want us to do it?" And he's like, "Yeah, if you can hit these different targets and hit this flower pot and hit this column, then I'll give you $1. But if not, I'm going to give you anything." So eventually it becomes a target practice situation. So now they want to come back and do it. So he's like, "You come back tomorrow and you do it again." And he kind of gives them a time. And each thing was very subtle that he imposed on them, but they were so focused on the money and making some extra bucks to do a naughty thing that they didn't really pay attention that they were being manipulated. So again, this goes on for several weeks. He has them now coming back at a time that he can control. He has them coming back at a finite time instead of just, they get 10 minutes of practice. Otherwise, it's like they're cheating. And then they had to hit certain things. And if they did, he would give them the money. But then he made the targets a little harder. And eventually he ups the money to $1, turns into $5, turns into $10, turns into $20. And then he also mitigated like how many people could be there. And it was only the original people. And they were really playing by his rules, but they didn't see it or really notice because they were so focused on getting the money. And he makes good on all of it. And this goes on for like another 2 or 3 months until finally one day he says, "Yeah, okay, you guys have gotten pretty good, but yeah, I don't have any more money to give you. So, oh well, thanks for coming by. It's pretty cool. Show off your skills." And they're like, "What? Like, that's ridiculous. You're not going to pay us, And he's like, "No." So they come by for another couple days, and they were looking for money, and they weren't going to get money out of it anymore. And eventually, they just stopped coming because they weren't being rewarded for the behavior, and they just eventually stopped. I do believe there's a version where he gets them because they come back a few weeks later, or he lies and says that he's going to pay them, and the cops are there finally waiting for him because he figured out who they all were and had it all set up. But sometimes you gotta, lean into the skid to take the hit in order to be able to survive the thing, even if it's something bad or you don't like, or, it's going to hurt you, but you still have to do it in order to get through the terrible thing, even when you know it's not right. Most readily cinematic available thought I have is Commodus when a very disturbed Joaquin Phoenix is playing him in Gladiator, and his senator, who's no good, says, "You lay very still on the floor of the sea, and the sea snake lets certain adversaries come and take bites out of it, and it even thinks that it's dead, but eventually then the sea snake comes alive and kills its prey." And that's kind of where we are with this. It's one of those things that shouldn't have had to happen, shouldn't have had to go on as long as it did. And it was ridiculous that nobody would step in. But sometimes you have to be resourceful, and all you have is yourself. And you have to be patient and come up with ulterior motives that are alternative means to a good end, even when it's a bad situation. So, if you liked what you heard today, then check us out at eclecticcollectionpodcast.com, or you can listen to us on your preferred platform. I'm Terry Tenaglia. Thanks for listening.